So unfortunately, journalists are still being targeted, especially in Gaza and in Israel, especially if they are covering this horrific conflict. And right now, a colleague of the Grayzone, a gentleman named Jeremy Loffredo, has just been arrested by the Israeli military and is still in jail. Now, there's a lot that we can't say about this, but first I want to pull up this tweet here. This is from Max Blumenthal. He's one of the leading co-founders of the Grayzone. I've just learned that, again, his colleague, Jeremy Loffredo, I think I'm saying his name right, was among the journalists arrested by the Israeli military and is still in jail. His phone has been confiscated. That is all I'm able to say now. And this other person here too, as well, who's an independent journalist, because this was a tweet that was retweeted by Max Blumenthal in regards to his colleague. Again, this is a different person altogether, and Andrew X. Today, I was beaten, kidnapped, blindfolded, and taken to a military base by the Israeli occupation forces, together with 4 other journalists. One of those 4 journalists being Jeremy. 2 of us were held for 11 hours without charges. My phone was confiscated, stolen, and one of us is still in custody. Full story soon. So there will be an update to this story. But in regard to who Jeremy is, he actually did an interview with Kim Iverson on June 21st, 2024. So I just want to play just a few short segments of this interview in which you guys can get a better understanding of who he is. This was him on the Kim Iverson show on June 21st. Hold on, let me be more correct about this. Apologies for this. June 21st, 2024. Sorry for that, folks. Let's go ahead and play this video. We're just going to play a few short minutes just to get you guys an introduction to who he is.
Thanks for having me, Kim.
So when did you get back from Israel?
I was there for about a month and a half, from the middle of October to the end of November. And then I was there for another month and a half, the beginning of March to the middle of April.
Okay, so you got back fairly recently. And the footage that we're going to show and a lot of these images, are these from this last trip that you took, or was this from the first trip you took?
Most of them are from the last trip,
okay.
I think.
So tell us what you were doing. What did you do the first time, and what did you do this last time that you were there?
So the first time I went, I mostly spent my time in the West Bank. And following October 7th, they turned most of the settlers in the West Bank, most of the illegal settlers that are there, against international law and against Israeli law, they're there. And they turned most of them into reservists, military reservists. So these settlers, they were already trying to get rid of the Palestinian villages and the Palestinian towns. They were bothering people. They were terrorizing them, but they were made military reservists. So they were given uniforms, guns. Some of them were given Humvees. They were given drones. So about a month and a half following October 7th, I don't know what the number is now, they already had used these things that they were given by the Israeli military to ethnically cleanse 18 towns and villages in the West Bank. So they would kidnap their children and take them back to the settlements and tell them, if you want your kids back, you'd have to leave the land. They would set the houses on fire. They would cut down their trees. They would kill their animals, their livestock. They would terrorize them until the Palestinians leave, and they go to another town and wait for the settlers to come there. So I was going through these villages through the West Bank, and I was living with these Palestinians, and they were actually very welcoming. It was me, and there were a few Israeli activists with them. And when there are Israelis there, when there's internationals there in their villages, the settlers are less likely to, attack or invade or do anything violent to their village if they know that there's journalists there or there's Israelis there. So they kind of see themselves, those Israeli activists see themselves as protectors.
Gosh.
Yeah. And so I did that for a little while. And then I also, in Israel proper, in Jerusalem, there was teachers, high school teachers and college professors who, one of his names is Mayor Brukin. He's a high school history teacher. And he was posting on Facebook about what was going on in Gaza. He would post pictures of children who had died in Gaza, say, this is Muhammad. Muhammad wanted to be a soccer player, but Muhammad will never be a soccer player because he was killed by our fine men and women in Gaza. And he was actually, his house was raided. He was put in solitary military confinement for a couple of weeks. And this is the crackdown that they're seeing inside of Israeli society. These are Jewish Israelis that always led a life inside of Israel of immense privilege, now, they're seeing what it's like to live under a a two-tiered system of justice,
And that's
and
just for speaking up, just for putting posts on Facebook.
that's social media posts.
Wow. Wow. That is so
And
scary. I mean, that right there, just think about that. So many of us here in the United States are anti-war voices, right? So
mhm,
just imagine, and here we are on the precipice of World War III, it feels like. And imagine if we do break out in a war and we're the baddies. I mean, it just feels like,
mhm,
more often that we're the ones that are instigating, we're the ones causing the problems. And imagine those of us wanting to speak up. This is the future for us. I mean, what we're seeing in Israel is a snapshot of what is coming for Americans if we were to go to war. Those of us that want to criticize the U.S. Foreign policy, the response, they're, saying, "Wow, look what we're doing to Russians or Chinese or
mhm.
whoever it is." I mean, they'll make that illegal. I mean, this is the future. They've done it in Ukraine. They've done it in Israel. They will do it here. I mean, I think people need to be aware of the implications of the support that we give to these other countries and what that means when they then try to bring those same policies to us.
We're going to stop here because there's a lot more to this interview. There's a whole hour. I'll be posting this original interview link in the description box as well as in the comment section when I clip this video segment. But this gentleman here, again, is currently detained. Now, I've been constantly, as the video was playing, refreshing Max Blumenthal's page in regards if there's any kind of updates. But unfortunately and regrettably, there is none right now. And that is a very unfortunate thing right now. I am ever hopeful that Max Blumenthal, the Grayzone, are able to get back their colleague. Jeremy should not be detained. And from the stories that we have seen recently, what happens to people who have been detained by the IDF, well, I don't think I could really explain it too well because there's a good chance that YouTube will probably, hit us and we'll probably get hit with a lot of things. So, but it is rather unfortunate. And we are living in a day and age in which censorship is getting out of control here. Um, we are seeing 1984 come into real life. We're seeing Brave New World come into real life. We're seeing Fahrenheit 451 and any other dystopian science fiction book that gave us a warning. But see, those books were supposed to be warnings, not a manual guideline for our political leaders to use. But yet that's what's happening. When I say that the censorship is going to get worse, I do mean it. And speaking of which, again, the Grayzone has been doing a lot of groundbreaking reporting. They have been really doing some phenomenal work. And I want to pull up this article here in regards to another news outlet, The Common Dreams, which, let's face it, we all know that a lot of people like the Grayzone, do dissidents, Hard Lens, of course. Hey, shout out to Hard Lens Media. Shout out to RBN, shout out to INN News, and so many others. As we've been talking about this entire horrific war that's taking place, I do want to pull up this article here. Israel assault has left 50,000 plus kids, Gaza kids, orphaned or separated from their parents, report says. And the thing is, this is kind of the stuff that's been kind of dismissed by corporate media. If you remember yesterday's show, we played a segment where another individual with the Grayzone was challenging the State Department spokesman, Count Chocula. I mean, sorry. He doesn't deserve a real human name. The guy has no soul. But nonetheless, how we're being led into this war and how no one is saying anything. And on top of that, I did a follow-up video from Case Study QB in which you have the oh so fantastic people from BSDNC saying, maybe we didn't report October 7th correctly. Well, here's something that's going on. The International Rescue Committee said Wednesday that a number of children who have been orphaned or separated from their parents is likely 3 times higher than the amount estimated by the United Nations earlier this year, with thousands of children caught up in the chaos of escalating Israeli attacks and evacuation orders in recent months. Officials estimates of orphaned or unaccompanied children range from about 17,000 to 19,000, but the IRC said that based on previous experience of other crises, the number is likely as high as 51,000. Just imagine if that was your little kid, your niece or nephew, your son or daughter, your grandchild. For one whole year, this war's been going on. Tell me again how this is going to bring peace in the Middle East. Hey, Biden. Hey, Harris, where you at? Oh, that's right. You were told to shut up, didn't you? And you did. Democrats, liberals. I will say this one thing. Liberals, every time I see you guys now, Every time I see one of your community events, I just can't help but wanting to rage out and throw a chair at every single one of you, clothesline you, because I know for a simple fact, if this was happening under Trump, you lying sons of a bees would be out there protesting. Where are you? Oh, that's right. You're drinking your mimosas. You're happy that Kamala's the nominee now. And now you're brave keyboard warriors yelling at people that if they don't vote for Kamala, oh, you're a bad person. Does it come as any surprise why Kamala Harris is losing her coalition? The IRC said that Israel Defense Forces continue assault on Gaza, whereas reportedly attacked civilian infrastructure and so-called humanitarian zones, in many cases with U.S. weapons, risk creating a forgotten generation. The group's report came as the IDF attacks on northern Gaza entered their fifth day, forcing thousands of people to flee to the supposed safe zone of al-Mawasi, which has been targeted repeatedly by Israel in recent months. Dozens of people have been killed in the IDF's recent escalation in the north. What can go wrong? The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Near East also reported that at least 7 schools being used as shelters for displaced people had been evacuated due to Israeli attacks. There is nowhere safe in Gaza to go. Along with evacuations, the arrests of hundreds of Palestinians in Gaza have exacerbated the rise in the number of unaccompanied children, said the IRC. This is so difficult to read because I can imagine what they have to do. It's been one whole year. And folks, the death toll is probably a lot higher than 44,000. You know, I said this before and I'll say this again, but, you know, we've all run into this kind of person before. You know, that smug liberal or that latte drinking liberal at a party or an event. And occasionally you might have heard an iteration of this story, maybe once in your life, or you overheard it, whatever. You hear that person saying, if I was alive during the Civil War era, I would have helped the Underground Railroad. If I was alive during World War II, I would have been part of the resistance and hide the Jews from the Nazis. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't, liberals. Liberals. I saw how you acted. I saw how you acted at the DNC convention. How a lot of you were covering your ears and dismissing the protesters when they were naming the names of those dead children. Covering your ears. Just shocked because you didn't want to hear it. I swear to God, if Trump does win, I'll try and be respectful at the first protest. It's going to be at Trump Tower here in Chicago. I will try. I know I will fail. Hashtag Kit is an awful man. Kit's an awful man. How could you be so mean? I could be very mean. So we know that there's a problem. But you know something? These liberals, when push comes to shove, they won't speak out. Each of us in our own right has to speak out. I played this on yesterday's show. This gentleman here, Jeremy, is currently being detained. Him and people like him who work at the Grayzone have done great work. Now, as it stands right now, I've refreshed the page from the Grayzone, and I still see no update, unfortunately. Trying to find anything with Max Blumenthal, and unfortunately, no update. I am ever hopeful that Jeremy is released immediately, and I hope that he is safe. But we need heroic journalists like this man here and others to be speaking truth to power. Remember when I said that Julian Assange being detained isn't going to be the only one? Remember when I said that the censorship's going to get crazier? I wanted to be wrong. I wish I was wrong. But we must never forget that if we remain silent, someday the next generation is going to look at us Are we going to look them in the eye?
Good afternoon, Seattle. Welcome to your afternoon newscast. We're here to bring you stories that matter most. Today marks the 16th anniversary of the tragic genocide. Commemorations are being held all around the world.
왜 아무것도 안 하셨어요?
Was hast du während des Völkermords gemacht, Großvater? Mais tout était devant vos yeux. Did you just watch it? أساس ماما بينما يقتل أطفال مثلنا. Why?
I call for the freedom of this gentleman who's being detained. His name is Jeremy Loffredo. No journalist should be detained. Stand for free speech. And maybe someday, not today though, we'll get a better future. Maybe someday. Still no updates. If there is, I will talk about it on Friday's show. But whatever's happening to him, he should be freed immediately. Not 1 second more.
It is the best $3 billion investment we make. Were there not an Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel to protect her interest in the region. The United States would have to go out and invent an Israel.
I don't mean to sound alarmist, but most of what they let you read is garbage. Most of it's designed to warp our minds until subconsciously you find you'll take the time to lick their boots free of grime and wipe their minds free of tarnish. Oil is the centerpiece, a body count of millions is the garnish. So how's it feel to know we funded every carcass? That every year our taxes pay for carpet bombing Gaza under shroud of darkness? Or that we spend enough a year to house and feed each homeless person in the streets on turning families in apartment buildings in the Middle East to bloody craters full of charred garments? And our media is silent at best. At worst, they can find it in themselves to call war crimes clashes and label children burned to ashes terrorists who played a stupid game and reaped the harvest. And every time we try to paint the truth, the news sends their slugs to suck off all the varnish and distort it into something harmless. See, the media will hang you by your feet and keep you half asleep. So yes, I'm here to set you free, but freedom won't be sweet because you'll fall 1,000 feet when I come cut you out your harness. They say those who dream the deepest fall the farthest. They also say that home is where the heart is. But if home for you is Gaza, Netanyahu's got you painted as a target. Perhaps it's not the impact, but it's what you see when falling that will hit the hardest. Maybe it's the sound of all those children crying out in those apartments that will hit the hardest. Maybe all those little bodies scattered in the dirt will hit the hardest. Maybe seeing human lives assigned such little worth will hit the hardest. Maybe it's the knowledge that you're paying for the darkest of atrocities committed on this earth that will hit the hardest. Maybe it's the knowledge that we give 10 million a day to oppressors who possess the kind of Medicare you'll die in debt before you see that's gonna hit the hardest. Maybe then you'll see you've always had more in common with the commoners whose slaughter we fund every day in Gaza than our senators and bosses. Maybe then you'll see our country never had a conscience. Maybe then the retroactive guilt will make you nauseous. Maybe what hits harder than the impact is the act of being conscious, of knowing your complicity and helplessness to try and stop the bloody deeds of Congress. And that no matter who's in office, America preserves its foreign interests by whatever means its greed demands, however monstrous. You see, we'll always need a place to drain our contras. And Biden's got a backup plan should harm befall the Holy Land. Wipe it off the map, he'll draw it back on with an iron hand. He demands an Israel or reasonable effigy to exercise democracy and colonize the Middle East. Regardless of the human cost of phosphorus atrocities, bought and paid with money they rerouted out the budget for the non-essential things like ever making Flint's water clean. So maybe what hits hardest is the day you see this country for its actual priorities. And never more no honest peace attempting sleep. Maybe then you'll look at politicians making speeches like a blood-encrusted beast espousing destiny to empty seats and fellow leeches. As the gauntlet of democracy extends its brutal reach, like a giant wave of trash come to crash on foreign beaches. Maybe build a base, throw a flag down and heavily pollute the region. Rape your ecosystems, gut your fauna and congratulate you on your new allegiance. Oops, we mean alliance. This is something mutual unless you're non-compliant. We stole something crucial on which you can be reliant. So maybe what hits hardest is the centrists saying both sides need to stop the violence. And those would be the very same centrists saying we should all accept police brutality, who hem and haw and clutch their fucking pearls and spend their time condemning riots. But very soon will come the day the centrists all get censored like the rest of us, and pious as they'll try to be, they won't stay quiet. But they'll just end up shouting in the void that they were also quick to render us subscribers. And it will be too late to light the fires. So far away tonight, they burn the spires of a region set ablaze for which you've paid for every pyre. Which is why your checks weren't all $600 higher. And call it foreign interests or American desires. This is why your checks weren't all $600 higher. Far away tonight, they burn the spires of a region set ablaze for which you've paid for every pyre. Call it foreign interests or American desires.